Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. I have with me today returning guest Candace MacPhie. Hello, Candace. How are you doing?
Doing great. Hi there.
Good. You were back in episode 82 talking about your second book, which was Life Strikes Back. Is that
hmm
correct? Okay. And
Correct.
now
Yeah.
you're here for episode 3, your third book. Hello,
Oh, man.
I am here.
Yes.
And that was an interesting sound effect.
Sorry about that. That was my,
It's
I
okay.
don't know, someone set an alarm for me. So
Oh,
there you
very,
go.
very good. It must have been
Okay.
for the start of this interview.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about Hello, I Am Here. So what's your elevator pitch for this book?
My elevator pitch for this book is the story continues with sort of a crazy time in Europe and then moving on to the Middle East, which is the predominant part of the book.
Okay.
So a lot about traveling as a woman and in the Middle East and the ups and downs of what happened then. Also, it's fun. It's cringy. It's got a whole bunch of stuff that happens that might not happen today. I talk about how um, everything's planned out to I go on holiday now and everything's completely planned out, but this wasn't this was traveling in a
Right.
different time period in the 90s when it's just um, the the getting from place to place was a lot of the adventure, so that's what this
Okay.
is.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Now, when we had you on last podcast, we talked about your background, and people should go back to episode 82 if they want to get the full in-depth backstory of you. But if you could sort of summarize how you ended up doing what you did with your backpacking and what led you to write these books.
Yeah, so I was doing what everyone, I don't know, what I thought was the right thing. I finished school, I worked, I got a job, but I was terribly unhappy. And this opportunity to travel, I met someone who kind of inspired me to do it. And I had always wanted to, and just took that leap of faith and
Mm.
decided I would give it a go for a year, and came back 7 years later. So it's sometimes these things just lead you down a different path of your
Mm.
life. So yeah, and then I went back to work and did the corporate life for quite a long time, for over 20 years. And my kids were growing up too fast, and I just thought, I need more time with them. And I'm so glad I did, because two of them are off at university now, and I just have one left at home. And decided to leave that corporate life and write, and that's what I've been doing. And I've never looked back. It's been great.
Cool. And your shall we call them footloose and fancy free days when you were single
hmm
and traveling?
hmm
It's
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
been the source for your book series so far, and
hmm
your Hello, I Am Here. How did you come up with the title for the book?
The book title. Um, when you're as a woman, and it's very much as women, walking around in Cairo, and it's very difficult. Well, in the Middle East in general, not just in Cairo, is very difficult. And you get catcalls and oogles, and fair enough. But some of the expressions that they use to catch your attention aren't very kind. But the one I liked the most was "Hello, I'm here," and they say,
Mm.
"Hello, I'm here." And that one always made me smile. It was always a nice way to capture your attention, and it always kind of made me feel lighter. And
Mhm.
in a way, it tied into the story arc of the character development too, because I was feeling very empty and very I just couldn't connect with myself. It took so long after um, my mom died, and just to be able to, and it's such a long time looking after her, um, to be able to uncover myself again. And that was what happened in this book. So it's hello, I'm here in terms of a kind expression, and also that I was there too. With you.
Okay, so you've co-opted that expression for yourself.
Mhm,
In
mhm.
fact,
Yeah.
it's very cool. Now you're in the Middle East,
Mhm.
and uh, you're still with your traveling companion that you started.
Yeah, so I started traveling with this wonderful girl, Deja, from Australia, and we parted ways for a while, and that happens in the beginning of this part. I reunite with someone that I probably shouldn't have, but I did, and then go back into this time in the Middle East with her, and then two other Australian girls. So four of us, and you know what? I was so thankful for them. It takes a lot to get through. It's difficult. It as a woman and just trying to adjust. It's not like you can, now you can probably buy tickets in advance and have your trip all planned out and maybe not even interact with anyone locally. But everything was a battle. It just is such different culture. I wasn't used to negotiating for anything. The only time I ever did that was at a garage sale.
Hmm.
And, there was no other kind of time where you had to negotiate for anything. It just wasn't something that I was used to.
Right.
And it was tiring, and Um, I didn't know how to do it. So we took turns. We would say, okay, we're buying bananas. I'll go first. Okay, you go second. And we'd take four of us to, and 20 minutes to buy a banana. So it was longer days, and it just things were that much tougher. But we had some amazing experiences like climbing Mount Sinai and going to the pyramids on a camel and just really enjoying all of the things in the Middle East, but also the just the tension and just traveling in that environment is not an easy way to do easy either on friendships or on yourself physically too.
Mhm. Yeah, just from a temperature perspective, that must have been an interesting experience.
The heat, yes, because I grew up in Montreal in Canada, and the heat
Mhm.
there is very humid and it's very heavy and it kind of sits on you almost like a tropical forest.
Right.
And this was this dry, dry heat, and it just it's different and just kind of makes you more sluggish. It's tiring to kind of wade through, and you're always dusty. The sand just sort of sits on you. And even in the city, like it's clean and everything's organized, but it's still sandy. It's just constantly sandy. And it's busy and it's noisy and it's loud and it's imposing. And it's just so much sensory overload. No matter where you are, everybody's loud, everyone talks loud, there's a lot of interactions. They're always loud in there.
Hmm.
And that that was something I was not expecting and not used to. I wasn't used to that sort of sensory because it's just there in the background all the time, and it kind of just it makes you tired too.
Right.
So
So,
yeah.
um, from a tourist perspective, did you hit all the big spots? You mentioned the pyramids and that. Did you go into the
Yeah.
desert? You see
Yeah.
the Nile River and
Yes,
all
yes,
that
yes.
stuff?
I sailed up the Nile on a felucca, and it was when I got to Jordan. I had just arrived from Amsterdam, and the girls had already been there for about a month before me.
Wow.
I took it, and so they were conditioned. They were used to the weather. They were used to the catcalls, and I remember walking through Amman at like 1 in the morning when I first got there off the plane, and it was busy. I thought, my God, what is going on? It's so crazy here, and it it's our room was had so many bed bugs, and it wasn't you could get like there's such a thing as a really cheap room and get it there,
Mhm.
and for a couple bucks a night you would stay in these places, and they weren't great, and I was not used to it, and it just took me some time to get over and get climatized to everything from the the places we chose to stay, and I know what the quality was like because we were on a budget, and everyone was like, okay, well, the more we save, the longer we can travel, and just kind of balancing that with personal safety and just getting around. But I make it. I don't know. It sounded kind of very linear. It's not so much linear. The story to me is it's a book. You immerse yourself in this crazy adventure where I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was doing, I knew roughly what I wanted to see and where I wanted to
Hmm.
go, but it's for me, the story really happened between the sites. And yes, I saw everything, and you get to experience that in the story. But it's really the interactions with the people that you meet, with the people that you're traveling with, the culture, my reaction to the culture, and my assimilation to the culture, and just the funny things that happen, the things that get into it. And yeah, so it is just you my goal is for the reader to be immersed in the culture and to be immersed in the situation and to be bought into the character and the journey of the characters as you meet them, and just have fun. So they're funny. I leave everything in there in terms of funny, the cringy, the sad, the crazy. It's all there for someone to enjoy.
Okay. Is there any specific incidents that you think might intrigue your readers?
Incidents. Uh, it's funny. I often thought that, like myself, if someone would relate to it better if you were interested in a location, like, oh, I've been to Egypt.
Mhm.
How did it go for you? Or what
Right.
was your experience like? And I find that readers get different things out of it. Even if you've been to a place, you might have had such a different experience, or you might be like, oh yeah, I kind of got that. Um, for me, there's moments uh, where you connect with the place, and I think that they're so personal that different people might connect with different parts of the book in
Hmm.
terms of whether it's a relationship party or a fight that you have with a friend over something, and it seems like such a big deal at the time, and because your world is so
Yeah.
it's this room, it's this space, it's this
Yeah.
next bus ride or whatever. And I try to make it very personal so folks can relate to different parts.
Hmm.
From a perspective of what I'd always wanted to do, my main thing was to see the pyramids. I was so desperate to see the pyramids, to experience the pyramids, and see what they were like. Um, and they were amazing. We were driving through Cairo. It's like an umbrella of fog, like smog over the city that's so thick. It just like sits on you and gets like
Oh, really?
stuck inside your lungs. It's so heavy.
Mm.
And if you leave the city limits, and you drive back in, you can kind of see it hanging like up
Oh.
here in Calgary. We have like these Chinooks that kind of hang over the city like an arc, and that's what the smog is like in
Mm.
Cairo. I don't know if it's any better now, but that's what it was like. And just to get to these places and to be able to take a camel, the negotiation for a camel, and then to get on the camel. And then the police came by on camels, and then they wanted, a little bit of compensation for their troubles. And it was just, again, it was immersing yourself in this whole culture and trying to sit there and trying to enjoy it. And
Mhm.
it's next to impossible because the harassment is so intensive. And it it became this, like, at least we had a few moments of quiet, but the whole experience is quite overwhelming for me. Anyways, I just found it. I'm sure if you were ushered in a group and ushered out, but when you're on your own and trying to carve out this experience for yourself, it's not always easy with the interactions with the locals. So I
Right.
think a lot of it kind of I talk about that quite a bit,
Mhm.
and we actually came across a couple who were traveling together, and the guy was saying that his girlfriend was really tired and she stayed in the hotel one day and he walked around and he said, my God, it was completely night and day. He goes, I was offered to have a cigarette with the carpet vendors and I had a cup of tea and we had a chat and it was, he said it was the most relaxing, lovely day. But when he's with his girlfriend, it was completely different. And it's just this very night and day experience that you have being woman and man in that environment. But
Mm.
anyway,
So how long were you there?
I was in Egypt for a month
Well,
and a month, yeah. So it was a while. It's long enough to kind of get into it, and it's not so bad after you leave Cairo. I think the other thing is the time period because now if I go on holiday again, I would plan out,
mhm.
you have limited time now, so you plan, okay, I'm going to eat lunch here because that place looks really good. I'd hate to miss that. And then I'll get a snack here, and that coffee's supposed to be good. So you kind of plan your routes, and I don't know, I would write it all down. But we would just kind of roll through the day. And after we left Cairo and went down to Aswan, it was completely different. The feeling was completely different. And because of the time period, I didn't really know what things looked like if I didn't have a National Geographic or an encyclopedia. I couldn't have the internet at my fingertips to be able to say, oh, this is what it looks like. Everything was kind of a surprise, so it was kind of neat. And Indiana Jones as well. Like I referenced Indiana Jones a lot because I loved those movies growing up. The
Mm.
adventure,
Sure.
just the style of them, and the sort of escapades he would get into. And when he went to Cairo, I thought, oh my gosh, that's what Cairo is going to be like, and it wasn't. But Aswan is very similar to the experience when Indiana Jones is in the marketplace and kind of cruising around. And it has that same feel, and the vendors and everyone's a little bit more like toned down a little bit. It's not quite as intensive. So
Mhm.
we had a great time there, and then sailing up the Nile and Felucca, and yeah. So the whole book really for me is just like a travel. It's like immersing yourself in this interesting experience, and I stay very true to the time period. So even the music, the songs, the references, the words, they're all within that
Mm.
90s time frame. So it's very much walks into that time,
Mhm.
and the experience you would have traveling at that time. So it's very different now.
Sure.
Um, yeah.
Especially the approach you took, because like you've touched upon it, like you were there, like on the ground, kind of on your own. Whereas most of the time when we travel, we're in groups. Uh,
Mhm.
a lot of people tend to just go to exclusive resorts or
Mhm.
whatnot, so you're still sheltered from the locals, I guess you could say, or
Mhm.
environment. So with the experiences that you were having there, were you ever like saying, I really want to go home, or
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Um, To be honest, it made it easier to be on the road. I grew up in a family where everybody loved each other and we had lots of connections. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like I had a bad home life. I just my mom died she got sick when I was 14, she died when I was 22. And everyone has their story, right? But that was my story that made home not quite the same in
Right.
a place I was needing to get some space from. So
Mm.
that was my main driver, was that home. As much as I loved my dad and my brothers and I wanted to spend time with them, it wasn't as homey, I guess, if I put it in a very
Mm.
basic way, as it was before. And I
Okay.
just needed some time away and some space. So the prospect of going home to me kind of felt like quitting when I had
Mm.
all of these plans and things that I wanted to see. And there were definitely in the Middle East, especially, probably more bad days than good. And but it was a place I'd always wanted to go. So the perseverance factor was quite high on my end. And there was a lot of days where I'm like, this is really dumb. I don't know why I'm here.
Right.
But I had things to see and things I wanted to accomplish. And there was like a list in my mind of places I wanted to go and experiences I wanted to have. And I'm so glad I did because it's not for the faint of heart. And I don't know at this age, if I'd be so willing to sort of, all right, I'm gonna head out to Egypt and go give it a go. I might be a little bit more like, maybe not. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, the you just get into the whole nitty gritty part of it, and you feel that my goal is for the reader to really experience what it's like to travel at that time as a woman in that environment,
Right.
and to enjoy and go, oh, and just have the full trip. So that's
Sure.
it.
So,
Yeah.
circling back to the title, "Hello, I
Hmm.
am here."
Hmm.
Uh, in your blurby, you say I find what I've been missing, and it's not a peanut butter sandwich, it's me. So,
Hmm.
how did you find yourself in Egypt?
You know, it was a series of moments, and I think it, being writing these books, I did not realize how deep the roots of my grief were, and
Mm,
they had still been, I don't know, absorbing parts of me throughout all the years. And
right,
I missed so much with my mom. We were all so close, and it was such a long time period to look after someone who was sick
right.
and to have different kinds of connections and different kinds of conversations early in your life that you might not have those kind of conversations with your parents. Half of the conversations I have with my mom, I have with my kids are the same ish age when my mom now that when my mom died,
Mhm,
and I look at them and go, oh man, I haven't had they haven't we haven't it was a different kind of connection. When you have a limited time period, you kind of soak it in, right? And really kind of immerse yourself
mm,
in this. And when she left, such a big part of me was gone because I didn't develop that side of myself. I
mhm.
developed my relationship with her, if that makes sense. And
Yep.
when she was gone, there was such an emptiness there that I really I didn't know myself well enough to fill it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And when I was going through, it was and well, for me, and I don't know for yourself, but when times are tough, that's when you discover who you are, right? You
Right.
discover what your grit is and what it's like. And there was, when I first got to the Middle East, it took I think within 2 weeks, I lost about 20 pounds. I was so sick, just from
Mm.
the food, and still trying to, yeah, I don't have a very good constitution. I discovered that. But anyways, I wish I had a iron gut, but I do not. Anyway, so it took me some time to kind of get used to being near the heat and everything, and just to be able to get through the day and kind of put one foot in front of the other and discover what you're made of, and then to get to know yourself. It's really interesting to put yourself in a really sort of maybe not so great position, and you do get to know yourself quite quickly. You do get to know what your limits are, and to uncover um, how how deep you can push yourself, and through um, good relationships and bad, you can toggle those together and really find out who you are. So there was this space that was just never filled, and I managed to uh, through each moment and through each sort of maybe not so great time, um, figure it out.
Right. Right. So there was a void like that 8 years you're looking after your mom, and this whole journey for you is was your answer to trying to fill that up with something outside
Yeah,
the previous
yeah.
experience. Yeah.
It started out as really just an escape because I was so unhappy
Right.
because after she died, I grew up in Montreal, as I said, and usually what happens in the English speaking Montreal, I moved to Toronto in Canada, to find a job and sort of dig out a career for yourself. And I
Hmm.
was so miserable. I was so unhappy. I hated every minute of living in Toronto. It just wasn't. We didn't connect, me in Toronto as a city, and I was not in place for it. I thought I was dealing with, this loss and this, like I said,
Hmm.
when you you spend all your time, it's like a relationship. Like if you were spend like 1/3 of your life in this relationship and then you don't have it anymore, it's like,
Mhm.
whoa, okay, there's a bit of a stall. There's a bit of a, a bit of a moment where you're like, okay, where am I going? What
Mhm.
to do? And I was I was pretty much at the bottom. You know, I was right down there. And leaving was a lot of effort, but leaving just felt easier because at least then I thought, well, I was kind of grasping at straws. I'm like, hey, I got to do something here because this is not
Right.
what I'm doing is not working, and I'm going to end up a very lonely, unhappy person if I continue on this path. This path is not a good one for me.
Mhm.
And yeah, I sold my car and I had a bit of savings. And between that was where I started my budget adventure, if you will, and just thought, you know what, this budget adventure has got to be better than this life I'm living. Because, on the surface, people might have thought, wow, lucky her. She has a job. She has friends. She has, this whole life. But I was so lonely. I was so sad and
Mm.
so desperately unaware of who I was. And I mean, it's not a completely foreign problem to be, in your mid 20s and not know who you are.
Right.
But my 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 structure to get there was just that um, I hadn't spent any time on myself, and I don't regret it because I only had a certain amount of time with my mom, and I fit as much into it as I could. But it
Right.
was about her, and it was never about me, and that's what this time was, and just figuring out. And each book kind of takes you through a section of that recovery, if you will, or that
Mhm.
journey of self discovery. Like the first one's called Finding Color, and that was really just that was just that, understanding that I my world was boring and awful, and I didn't like who I was, and discovering that I actually had a bit of sparkle left, and that was the first book. And the
Right.
second book was Life Strikes Back, and it was just really getting through that deep grief. And then this book was still okay. I've dealt with the grief. I know who I am. I'm getting to find who I am, but I'm still really empty because it's just I'm still just this
Mhm.
haven't connected. So, and that's what this book does. So, yeah.
All right. Um, just to lighten the mood a bit.
Yeah, sorry, we'll take it down
Yeah,
a
but
real boring,
no,
sort
that's
of
good.
draggy path there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's good. Do you know what became of your Australian co-travelers?
Absolutely. So I went to Australia 2 summers ago with my kids, and I dragged them all around Australia. And I have to say, I have 3 kids, and one was like is doing it herself. The other one could take it or leave it, and the third one did not unpack her bag and pretty much was ready to go home at a moment's notice. So I have 3 completely different children, which doesn't like lend itself to long travel segments. But
Uh,
I did go to Australia and I did meet up with everybody again, and it was
oh,
pretty
cool.
awesome. So, and
Yeah.
we do stay connected. I think with social media, it makes it easier to stay
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
But yes, so, and I still email them. Like I said, there's one part in book 3 where we go to an oasis in Israel, and I was going to put one of the characters saying, "Well, last one in is a dirty rotten egg," and and I I thought, well, should I say that? Because I don't know if they say that in Australia. So I'm like, do you say? And they said, oh yeah, we use that expression. I'm like, okay, one of you is going to say that. So I was just trying
Right.
to figure out who was going to say it. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's just some things that, they do help me out with my vernacular to make sure that
Oh,
I'm using the appropriate terminology, although I am an avid Googler. But other than that,
right. So,
yeah.
so this is book 3.
Mhm.
How many books are you envisioning for the series?
Oh, there's 5. I know it
All
keeps going, doesn't it? It's a long trip. No, I really thought it was going to be one book, and it just kind of blew up because
Sure.
the once I kind of got into it, and I wanted people to have the full adventure, there was more words that were necessary than in one book. So the fourth book, which I'm what I'm working on now, is actually called Beautifully Warped, and it's a safari in Africa. So again, we're dumping out of this busy Middle East into this sort of open plains with animals, and what makes it brings the sort of hectic and the drama is that it's on one of those overland camping trucks,
Okay.
and there is 29 people who don't really know each other. A couple people
Okay.
kind of came with pals and stuff, but it's a interesting study of a boiling pot of putting people together for six
Hmm.
weeks in this like hot, sort of sweaty. Sometimes you don't have much food, sometimes you do, sometimes it's all about, the best place to put your tent. And, it becomes this whole interesting study of understanding who's who and their relationships and the dynamics between uh, this Lord of the Flies situation on an overland truck. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good description. I think that should be
Yeah.
your elevator pitch. Lord of Flies
There you go.
in a
Yeah.
caravan truck. So you're writing that now. You're planning to release that this year, next year.
Yes, this year. This year. I don't have a specific date. I'm still giving myself some time because there's a lot in this one, and I wanted to
Okay.
make it. It's digging into it to make sure that the right parts are accentuated, if you will. Mhm.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I asked you this on the your previous episode. You've been doing this sort of like autobiographical ugh, autobiographical journey. Uh,
Mhm.
have you ever given any further considerations to writing straight out fiction?
Oh, yes. I think that's where I'm ending up. I feel like um, when I moved from the corporate world, where I was a whiz with PowerPoint,
Hmm.
to writing a book, totally different competency,
Right.
really cutting my teeth on these books and understanding the nuances and the sort of the swirl of how to, bring all these threads together in a story and sort of weave them and then untangle them and bring them
Right.
back together and then sort of close them off at the end.
Hmm.
So it's interesting, such a different competency in terms of writing. And I'm sounding such a nerd right now, and I'm such a nerd, so it's okay.
Hmm.
I love doing that. I love finding ways to, when you read something and it's quite clunky, and just trying to find
Right.
a way to economically bring you through this adventure, economical words,
Hmm.
and to be able to immerse you in both the setting and the experience. My one of my challenges in this, well, I have two challenges I'd say in this book. These books are you're constantly moving locations, so there's always words that are sucked up by describing where you are.
Right.
Um, and the other thing is there's lots of folks you meet because you're constantly moving locations and you're always moving from one place to another. And whether you're interacting with the local or with different people that you meet along the way, there's a revolving door of folks. But to me, that's part of traveling and in
Hmm.
such a way with your backpack. Which I don't know, if you travel with your suitcase and you go, into, the lobby and check into your room and go into your room, come out, maybe go to the buffet breakfast or whatever, and then do your site. It's not the same. Like when you immerse yourself with this backpack and you dump yourself in a dorm room, you're automatically,
Yeah.
potentially meeting people constantly, whether they're good or they're bad. And to, that is part of the adventure. There's the stinky guy. There's the real suave guy. When I was in London, I was rooming with this Israeli model, and every morning he'd like knock out 100 push-ups, and I'd just sit there and I'd be like, okay, this is a really great way to start my day. Every place is completely different, and you a part of the experience is who you share your
Hmm.
space with. That typically would be very personal. This is very personal. So this is where I sleep. This is where I shower. I'm at the sink putting my makeup on next to some dude shaving who I don't even know who he is. And that, like, watching someone's shave is like, it's pretty personal too, and
Yeah.
someone else
Yeah.
putting their makeup, all of these moments that would typically be quite personal become very public and become
Mm.
something that's completely different. So it's kind of taking your world and swapping it around. So anyway, that's what happened.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't covered?
No, I think that's it. I think just I I mean, I got a little doomy gloomy in the center there. I
That's
apologize for
okay.
that.
No,
But it is part of the journey. But what I have noticed is that people take different things out of the book. Some people
sure.
just find it funny because they're like, oh, ha ha ha, I loved that
Mhm.
part,
Right.
and other people who might be like, got something going on, have read it and gone, okay, I can relate to that part of the story. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. And I don't, and my goal was not to make it too much in your face,
Mhm.
and just to have folks overall be able to take and enjoy an adventure and enjoy it. And the thing is, if you're not terribly interested in one place or another, you can just pick up one book and just read one book. They're written, although they're one continuous adventure, they are written to be picked up and enjoyed on their own as well.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I want to thank you for your time, Candace, and
Thank you.
wish you all the best. I'll probably be talking to you next year about your
Yes.
next book.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
And until then, I hope Calgary has plenty of water in the future.
Yes. Oh my, oh la
Yeah.
la.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Take care. Till next
Okay.
time. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.